Welcome to Things You Don't Know, the podcast that explores well-known individuals and unusual things that are not known about them and lesser-known individuals and the impact that they have had on events. Today, we're going to look at some interesting sayings and phrases that have become part of normal language and explore their origins a bit. And we're also going to bring in some foreign phrases and language that we thought were pretty interesting. And we also have a guest with us today, in addition to Dr. Deneen and myself.
Yes, friends, we have Mr. Jonathan Weaver, a brilliant mind and a dear friend of this broadcast.
Okay. So, without further ado, Sean, start us off.
Okay, the first word we're looking at is the traditional phrase, say uncle, to symbolize giving up. It comes from the Gaelic word anachal, which is a word for mercy in battle. And the phrase was popularized by American Civil War Commander Thomas McSweeney in the 1860s.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting one. Another, I'm sure you've heard the phrase to give no quarter. Well, it really doesn't have anything to do with a quarter. What it has to do with, it comes out of the Jacobite uprising in the 1750s in Scotland. The phrase was also, of course, used during the American Revolution. What it means, of course, is no mercy asked or given. Another source of popularizing this phrase comes from the American Revolution, attributed to Banastre Tarleton, the fearsome and bloodthirsty loyalist commander of the American Revolution. His harsh tactics against the Virginia militia at the Battle of Wachshaw was important.
Yes, now comes one of our foreign phrases, the term lager. It's an Afrikaans term from the Boers in South Africa. You've often heard of the term if someone's in crisis and you want to help them, it says circle the wagons. Well, a lager is a collection of circled wagons, and a famous saying in times of crisis is lager toe, brodars, which means brothers, draw the wagons into a circle. Go into lager, hide all that you care about and all that is precious to you.
Another foreign phrase is chao hoi, a Vietnamese phrase meaning open arms, which was a program to convert former Viet Cong guerrillas during the Second Vietnam War using benevolence.
Over 100,000 defected by the end of the war.
A commonly heard phrase now is a lame duck, which is used to describe a person or thing that isn't properly able to function, especially one that was previously proficient. Now, the origin of that comes from a phrase applied to politicians who are known to be in their final term of office, when colleagues and electors started looking toward a successor. It is also sometimes used to describe office holders who have lost an election but have not yet left office.
Okay, here's an Irish term. If you think someone's totally lost touch with reality, you say they're away with the fairies. In other words, living in a fantasy world. It was applied to the great Irish Republican leader Charles Stewart Parnell in the 1880s. The next one of these phrases comes from the Armenian language. Serid merdam. It literally means I will die on your heart, meaning I'll do anything you ask. It comes from three sisters who fought and escaped from the Armenian genocide in 1950.
Yet another foreign word phrase is odar, which means other, literally used to describe someone outside the circle. It may come from the phrase Odargnovsk, which is a globe that Odin used to look outside of Asgard in Norse mythology.
Okay, the next word is kind of funny. It's another Afrikaans word. It's the word seskoppel. It literally means creature, but it's come to mean an insult. It's like calling someone a jackass. And it came from the great founder of the Reform National Party, Albert Herzog, in the 1960s, who was extremely passionate over the introduction of television to South Africa. He thought it would lead to dangerous ideas. So he said the prime minister was a cesskopper for wanting to have TV.
Another fascinating phrase here is ear candy, which was used to describe music with instant appeal but no lasting impact. First attributed to the album Smells Like Teen Spirit in 1994.
It's my shout mate.
Oh, that's an Australian phrase when you tell a friend you want to pay the tab. It comes out of the gold mines in the late 1800s. They would be paid as well as in money, as in with free drinks, and it's my shout mate, and it's my turn to pay the tab.
Another common phrase, and we hear it now even today, is trust but verify. Now, a lot of people attribute it to Reagan, but it's actually an old Russian phrase symbolizing cautious acceptance. And it was originally seen from Turkheim's novel Fathers and Sons in 1871. And in Russian, it actually means, or is actually translated as doverai no proverai.
So it rhymes in Russian.
Indeed, it rhymes in Russian. Okay, another phrase that we've heard often quoted, God helps those that help themselves. It's very familiar to us. One of the people that we've done a podcast on already, Benjamin Franklin, is probably the originating source. And basically it means effort undertaken is effort multiplied.
Here's another one coming out of business, a good job work. It means to create a machine tool well. It comes out of the Carnegie steel mills in the early 1800s. And here's one in a completely different area, the name Crips for a street gang. They often used walking sticks to note their status in the gang. So that came from Tookie Williams himself. As a person with a disability, I get a sort of morbid amusement out of that.
John, the walking stick is also something that's used in fighting. Is that not correct?
Correct.
Main leaders carried a multiplicity of sticks. Up to 5 or 6 meant you were pretty important.
You know, a phrase that we've heard often is a stitch in time saves 9. Means to make a small correction now and fix it so that you don't have to make a larger one in the future, which comes from the notion of a small tear in clothing can be darned or stitched up, and it won't get any bigger. It was first recorded in literature in Thomas Fuller's Nomologia. Another phrase that is very popular and heard often is y'all, Y''AL or Y''ALL. I say that because it's used in the South quite a bit. And it's interesting because it can be singular or it can be plural, depending on the context. If I say to you, not talking to you, John, and I say, y'all need to do this, then obviously that is singular. If I say to you and Dr. Deneen at the same time, you all need to pick up the pace here, it means it is plural. So it's rather interesting. Another Southern saying, bless his heart. Now, that may be condescending, as in disparaging the person, like, hey, this poor simpleton or this poor whatever, bless his heart. He can't do any better, in essence. It may also be a legitimate, compassionate remark, somebody that you care about. Like if I were to say, John is helping us out on this podcast, bless his heart, that would be compassionate, not condescending.
When the game is over, the king and the pawn go into the same box. That's a Portuguese expression meaning that everyone must ultimately face death. It comes from Prince Henry the Navigator in 1507.
Hey, I got a good one for you guys. Hoist by your own petard. There's 2 probable origins for it. One is a bomb maker who gets blown up by their own bomb. The other one, and I think this one is probably the real origin. When you are muzzle loading a cannon, take the charge and you put it in, and then you take the shot and put it in on top of that and you jam it down. Well, there were times when the petard, which is the stick that they use to jam it in, would create enough heat or friction or whatever to actually fire the cannon. And if you were holding onto the petard, or you had the petard in a position where it might catch on your clothing, well, guess what? You got to get shot out of the cannon. And so you would fly through the air, often to your death. It is also suspected that it may have originated, as seems like so many things did, from Shakespeare in the play Hamlet. But I think the popularized version was actually more like in the Revolutionary War era.
Another truly fascinating phrase, one that everyone's heard, I think, is a buttload. You know, a buttload of something means a large amount, right?
Yes.
No, a buttload is actually an English measure of liquid volume between 450 and 1,060 liters. Traditional for wine and alcoholic beverages in the USA, it's about 120 gallons. It's actually the second largest size of cask, the butt, Butte.
Wow. Here's another one we've often heard: fortune favors the bold. That comes from another Shakespeare play, Henry IV, and it means to not be afraid to take risks. Every man is guilty of all the good he did not do. That's from Voltaire and the Philosophes. And it says human beings have an obligation to do the best they can to improve the world around them.
Keep your pecker up. Oh, my Lord. What is he talking about? I am not talking about penises. It is actually the pecker. It comes from Great Britain, and it has to do with your nose, your pecker. It's like a bird's beak. And what it really means is keep your spirits up, stay positive, etc. In other words, keep your head up, keep your chin up, keep your pecker up. So you can, folks, you can use that one and people think you're being really nasty, etc., and you're really not.
Another interesting word or phrase is the concept of someone being jacked up. It actually comes from an American colonial process of jacking an alcoholic beverage, usually a hard cider, which is also where we get the word applejack from. And to jack up this beverage, they would bury it in the snow outside of their cabins and wait until the non-alcoholic part had frozen. And then they would scoop the ice out and create a much stronger distilled beverage.
Another interesting phrase that we've all heard is penny pinching. It's an Old English expression, and it was first recorded in Thomas Decker's play Showmaker's Holiday. Another phrase that you may not be familiar with, depending on your age, is a fine kettle of fish. Now, this was popularized actually by Laurel and Hardy, the comic duo. I guess they were popular in the 50s, 60s, perhaps.
Around that general time, yeah.
Okay. And there's three possibilities here. One is that it comes from the name of an English pan that is specifically used for cooking fish, or it could be that it comes from a fishnet that's used for catching fish. Or the one that I personally like a lot is when they build dams. They make little indentations in the dam for structural reasons. And when they let the water out of the reservoir that is usually behind the dam, fish would get caught in this indentation, which is also referred to as a kettle. And therefore, when you would come upon these kettles that were full of fish, you'd say it was a fine kettle of fish.
Okay, the word buckle down, to put out one's best productive effort. That comes from Atlantic Monthly Magazine in 1865.
Cool.
The next is to let the cat out of the bag. That's an old marketing trick. People would put a pig in a bag that people were buying and substitute it with a cat. It's become a symbol when you get something that you're not aware of and you don't want. Also giving away a secret.
Mm-hmm. Face the music. I bet you've heard that one. Like you're going to have to face the music. Well, there are multiple possibilities of meaning. One of the common assertions is that to face the music originated from the tradition of disgraced officers being drummed out of their regiment. Second popular theory is that it was actors who faced the music. That is, they faced the orchestra pit when they went on stage.
Here's an older one on tenterhooks. A tenter is a wooden frame, a line of fence used to hang cloth to prevent it from shrinking as it dries. Tenterhooks are the hooks on the tenter used to hold the cloth in place. They're no longer in everyday use, but they were very common, particularly in England 100 years ago. So the land around the mills was known as tender or tenter fields. So the phrase on tenterhooks came to mean being in very painful tension derived from the stretching of fabric. It comes from also the writings of a playwright named John Ford in his play in the 1630s, Broken Heart.
All right, we have another one. A man after my own heart. I'm sure you've heard that. And we know it means like a kindred spirit, somebody I agree with. The origin of it is the Bible, the King James version of it from Samuel 13:14.
And another originally foreign phrase here is to save face or to lose face. I mean, to lose face obviously means to be humiliated, to lose one's reputation. To lose face began life in English as a translation of the Chinese phrase tu lin. The phrase may also be expressed in English as to suffer public disgrace. That is, to be unable to show one's face in public. In 1876, the consular official, Sir Robert Hart, published a series of essays about that as well.
Hey, this has been a hoot.
It certainly has.
We learned some things, and hopefully we passed along some things that would be of interest to you. If you liked it, please give us a like. We would love to also have you subscribe to the channel. We've got something coming for our subscribers that you're really going to like. I'm going not to tell you what it is just yet, but it is coming, and it'll be good stuff. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a good day, and thank you, John, for helping us.
Thank you for having me.
First of many contributions, I'm sure.